Let's see if I can speak like a human. So double check the website, make sure we have the same current setup. Again, if your pictures are different, I don't care about that. Just overall, the style and the look should be similar. So we have our nav bar with our splash screen with our text, and on the login is still blank. Sign up now has its own little picture and the new user form text for the moment, which we are now going to replace this with our new user form. That's our goal for today. Once we have the new user form and the login form going, maybe that's when we actually move on to the mobile friendliness, because that'll at least have something there. But at some point, yeah, we definitely want to move to mobile friendly, and yeah, that'll involve making a collapsible menu here. But we'll look at that in a second later on. Let's go ahead and build the form. Again, this is where we're going to see a lot of use of the common components. So definitely feel free to look at those common components, make sure you understand how they work, what their purpose is, why we use them. So overall, the main thing I will tell you the reason why we use them is to, again, prevent ourselves from just using the generic, just default style of websites, which no longer look modern. To see what one of those look like, we go to the register or the sign up page, off and register. And just inside of here, under new user form, I'm gonna put in here quick. I'm just gonna put, let's switch this, sorry, to a container. Let's switch this to a container quick. Let's do that. I'm just gonna put an input field. I'm going to wrap that in a form tag. There's nothing in there yet, just so you can see what it looks like with the basic form tag and the basic one input, and then a button. There we go. So none of our base components, none of the common items that I gave you, and just that alone, we get a very bland looking form with the standard gray button and like this. And the only reason why it's left to right is because our system is currently using a flex box. So this is even the default behavior of the left to right. It should be top to bottom in a normal form with a normal block-based display. So by using our common components, we're going to get a form that takes up more of the screen. It's going to stretch wide. It's going to allow for inline items. So we'll be able to do first and last name on the same line and other items on separate lines. And with the submit button, we can make sure the submit button is our nice, larger button with the colors and the clickable sense to it and the rounded corners that are very common nowadays. We see a very modern button that is mobile friendly because it's larger. These buttons were very befitting in the beginning of the internet because in the beginning of the internet, it was all on computers. So clicking these with the mouse was easy. And small buttons were easy to click. Not to mention these buttons did also look bigger because we had less resolution on our screens. So they weren't that small originally. Now they are smaller, but even then, like I said, I can still click on this fairly easily because I have a very fine focused or fine-tuned mouse that allows me to click very accurately. On a mobile device, not as easy to click on something small. It's a lot more difficult because I'm using a finger, not a pointer. I don't have a very pixel-wide point. I have a fat finger. So we need to make sure we have a button that is large enough to fit finger usage. So instead of pointer usage. Let's switch this out. Let's get rid of these now. We'll go ahead and bring in our form component from common. So right there, property, is that right? No, that doesn't look right. That's JSX. Why is it not recognizing the form from common? All right, fine. Do you want to recognize it? I don't need you to recognize it. I'm going to import it myself. So sometimes I notice that it sometimes will notice and recognize what you're trying to bring in. Sometimes it won't. So just be ready to import things if you need to. Form from common form. Now I'll bring that in. What we can do now, of course, is double check. If we go click on the form quickly, we can see if there's any props that it's expecting. This is something else I do want to slowly start increasing on my components to start bringing in more prop type stuff for you guys so you know what props are expected. We take a quick peek. We know we only have a on submit method we need to send it. And then we have the style method or style prop. So we have style and on submit are the two props we care about. Right? If you want to double check and find them quickly, if you double click on a word, it'll highlight those words in the text and also highlight them on the right or on the scroll bar. So if you're ever looking for a certain phrase in a file, just double click on the word you're looking for. And it'll highlight all the same word on what you're looking at and on the right with that as well. Let me make this a little bigger for you guys. That should be good. That good? Or do you like the other bigger one? Good. Okay, start with here. If you need to get bigger, let me know.
That's better.
That's better.
Awesome. Yeah, if you double click on props, we see props.onSubmit, props.style, and props.children. We know children's passed automatically. So style, if we want to adjust the style, we can. And if we want to do the onSubmit is the one that appears to be the one we need to do. On submit, did we create something on Tuesday for that or on Monday? It's hard to remember, but go back to the
We did not create the on submit.
register. We created a blank version of it. We do have a method called on submit that we sent through on submit on user form. You're right. We didn't actually create the actual logic, but we do have the function that we can pass down, that we can give to form. So we can at least give it to props on submit. And that currently won't do anything, but as soon as we add the logic to our on submit function in register, it will then update automatically here and start working. Awesome. Just to verify again, some of the things we got, and this could be this is something, by the way, that you are allowed to do, and it might be seen in other libraries, is a destructuring of props. So instead of always doing props dot something, you'll see some sort of destructuring. There's two ways we can do the destructuring of props. One is the normal way of doing const, curly brackets, props, and then doing on submit, on change, and new user. We got those three items. So those are the three props we sent. We can pull those three out. Another variation you'll see is actually to deconstruct inside of the parameter section up here. And so never actually having the props variable at all. And instead doing it here where you do the curly brackets inside the parentheses, and now we do our destructures on submit, on change, and new user. And so this is the other variation of deconstructing inside of components. So if you see this, that's all this is doing is this item right here. So I'm going to leave this here so you guys can see this in one area, because when you go Googling for React components or examples, you might see this process of one of these two. And just make sure you have it somewhere in code that you can reference what it is.
I've already seen the first one that you showed, the second one. I mean, actually the second one, the first one, no.
This one?
No, I never saw this one. I do.
Oh, you saw this one before.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Okay, yep. That's why I wanted to show it, because it can be common. So we have that. One of the benefits we get here is we no longer have to type props anywhere else in the code. We can just type out the variable that we're expecting. It can be more convenient, especially if we need to use something a lot. And because every single one of these forms is every one of the elements or the input form elements we're going to use is going to use this on change and new user. It's going to make our life a lot easier by deconstructing this, because otherwise I have to type props twice in every single input field. And that can be annoying. So
Can that get too wordy up there though?
definitely. Yep.
Okay.
That's why it definitely matters on where you're benefiting from on less typing. If there's going to be too many, then do not destructure. Go props, and then destructure the most common items out of props, and the ones you're not going to use too often, continue to use props dot. So destructure only the items that you're going to be using repetitively, so you can reduce the amount of times you have to do props dot, etc. Save your typing. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, next up, let's start with our first item. So if we remember back over here, we can see here's the data we need to pull from our user. What should the top item be? What's the very first thing we should probably ask our user for?
Email.
Jeff says email. Anyone have any other opinions?
Username.
Last name.
Password?
I'd be surprised if password was first. I will admit that one. That one's weird. I don't know if I've ever been asked for password first. We could definitely be the weird one to do it, but I've never been asked for password first, I feel like.
Usually like name, your name, last name.
Your
Okay, yeah.
username.
If you, for me, it's this one or this one. Those would be one of the ones I would think about. Right?
I'll go with name.
We'll go with name first. So anybody else with email? Name first. Do name first. So now I'm going to explain how we use my form system. So how the form system works, how it's intended to work, and how it works the best is to use an inline input container. So note how it says input in here. So inline input container allows you to create a row in your form. So form by default is a block-based or display with a column-based system. So it's going to display them in columns. If you want elements on the same line, which can definitely be necessary, think of, again, first and last name, probably want those in the same line. If we're doing a password and confirm password, we want those in the same line. City, state, and zip, how often are those on the same line?
Very often.
Right?
They're
This
usually
is-
in the same one.
Yeah. So in this case, this is where the input line, inline input container is used for. It allows you to create the inputs in line in a single row. It's a container for that. Anything outside of it is considered a separate row. The input inline container also contains an error system as well. So if you want to create an error and pass an error to it, it has that system in place where it'll pop up the error underneath that line. So it has one line for the actual input elements and then another line for the actual error message. So if you decide to actually put those out there, you can put an error right below the field that is the problem field. So it was definitely designed for friendliness for you guys. Cool. Let's go ahead and start with that. We'll do the inline. Let's see if it actually recognizes it. Hey, it does. Nice. Inline input container. Inline input container actually has no props other than a style prop. So if you in the error prop. So other than that, if you're not going to use the error system, do not provide it. Because as long as if props.error is not present, it will display nothing. Style, again, if you ever want to change the style, take up more room, change the height or anything like that. But I've designed this in a way that you shouldn't need to change anything except maybe the colors, if you want to change colors. Next up, let's bring in our first input. So again, we're going to make sure we use our input from our common components again. That is not it. And it didn't find it again. All right, fine, we'll import that one too. There you go, input. And then if we check this one needs a little bit more on the props. And this is one I really should do prop types for at some point to make it easier for everyone. But got input, we'll decide here, so we can look at it. Let's highlight the props item and see there are several props. A lot of the props you'll see are very similar to the standard input HTML element. So most of the props here are just there by that, but have a default behavior in case you don't include them. Again, this does have the error styling though. So if you do the same, if you point to the same error item that your inline input container points to, so if inline input container and the input field share the same error object or error property, then the input inline container will display the error message while the form will actually put a red border around it. So again, we may show this later on, depends especially later on if we depending on the error message system we have with this project. We'll have to check on that, see what kind of erroring the project provides if we give invalid data. I don't know how much error reporting we did on Expression, so we'll have to take a look at that later. Lost somebody. Send a chat message, or did they just drop? Send a message, so that would be, I'm assuming that was unexpected. See if they come back in, try to pay attention. Anybody sees anything pop up in Slack, let me know. Other than that, we have I'm going to let you guys know the items that are important that you must put in. Name, ID, and value, which you know what, I should move that there. And on change. So these four are required on every input field. The name and ID is what connects it to your data set or your state property. So ID and name are going to connect it. Value is how you're going to display the current value that is in your state and also update. And the on change is whenever they make a change, whenever they type something, we want to make sure we update our state. Everything else is optional depending on what you're doing. So type by default is going to be a text field. So this is going to be a text field. If you want anything extra or anything else, you'll want to select that item. What was I going to say for this one? Oop, there, Matt. Matt who dropped? Matt dropped. Okay. Other ones can be like option or number. That's one number. Email. So you can actually do a type of email and it will do some default error checking for you before you even submit it to the back end. The front end can do some error checking for you. So we'll actually use one of those ourselves, but this one is not required unless you're doing something other than a text field. I will remind you that if you're going to use a text area, I do have a text area one because the input item does not go vertically. It actually restricts the size, the height of the input field. So I wouldn't recommend using the input for text areas. So use the text area component. And if you want to drop down, select drop down menu, use the select one. All right. Placeholder again, while not required, I highly recommend it. What I've built is dependent on the no label version we've been seeing a lot in modern systems. There is no label for the form. The label is inside the field itself. So that's kind of the version we've gone for, the version I've gone for. So placeholder is technically where the label goes. So while not required, I highly recommend using placeholder as that ghost text that's in the field before they start typing, and it should tell the person what they're typing in there. So I say it's required, but again, you don't have to. Required should be pretty self-explanatory, whether or not that field is required in order to hit the submit button. All you have to do to use this is just type required in the field. You don't have to do required equals true, just do required. We'll probably do one of those, we'll use this, of course, on email and password minimum, and then we'll see if any others need it too. Except I don't really want to, if you need to know what this does, look this one up. This one's not, this is one of the more least important items. This is actually in relation to file uploads. So this actually is also useful. You can actually use this field for a file upload. So if you want to upload images or documents, you can use the input tag for that. And this is just telling it to accept what file types. Don't worry about that. Same with multiples. So these two have to do with file uploads. Disable just straightforward, disables or enables the text field. Last but not least, autocomplete. This is connected to mobile devices. So whenever you tap on a field and you go to autocomplete, it will actually try to recommend things. You can disable that by putting in I think it's disabled, but you can also put in other attributes as well in order to do like words, email, and things like that. You can tell it what sort of field this is, so it'll try to autocomplete for the user better on mobile devices. Any questions on this field, on this component? This currently is the most complex component you guys have for me, so I want to make sure I reviewed it a bit extra with you guys. All right, let's start using it.
Really quickly, my register is giving me a problem right now. Can you take a look at your register really quickly, just to make sure that you
Speak a little louder. I'm not getting it. What was that?
the register form, like I guess my unsubmit is giving me a problem. Can you take a look at yours real quick? Oh, you have
What
nothing
is?
in there. Okay.
Yeah,
No,
there's
sorry.
nothing there yet.
I got, you know, in the register form here in my unsubmit, I had unsubmit. I guess that was giving me a problem. Yeah, never mind. That was it.
Okay.
I had between the brackets, I had unsubmit, and that was giving me an error. I wasn't
Oh, in
sure if
here.
you got. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you got rid of it or you left it there.
Don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on.
Okay, cool. Oh yeah, I move stuff around for you guys. All right, so first input, this is going to be our first name item. So we're going to do name. Again, that's going to match up with what we have here. So name is going to be just in string format, f name. ID is going to be identical. Name. Next item is the value, if I remember correctly, was it? Yeah, value. So let's do value. That's going to be equal to new user dot f name. Last one, not least, like I said, oh no, two more. Sorry. Actually, no, we should do this. on separate lines, so it's easy to read. And change is equal to our onChange method here.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Oh, no, not like that. Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that one in a second because I forgot to do something on that. We'll do that in a second. Placeholder. It's going to be first name. Look at that first, make sure that we get at least some sort of behavior we're expecting. So if we go back to the form quick, we can see, looking all right. Probably should add a little bit to the top there, huh? Give some spacing maybe,
Yeah,
probably. What do you think?
I think so, yeah, because it's like
Yeah.
right by that grass there.
Yeah. And if we check it a bit quick, let's see if we can get it. Let's see what we got going on here. It seems very squished. Is there something wrong with my form? Very, very squished. Because of the container it's inside. So there's that. Why are you that size?
You have
Where's the
styling on
width
this?
come from? What's that?
You have styling on this?
Yeah, the styling
Yeah,
on
through the
there.
form.
I mean, it's not adding extra space, so I'm wondering.
min
if, like,
width.
styling From that whole, from the whole component has styling from the,
This div
Can
right
you
here.
just
This is
add
the
padding
container,
to
right?
that div right there?
What's that?
Can you just add padding to that?
We can add padding to the top. I'm trying to remember why it's only taking up that little amount of width. It feels like it should be wider. I'm not sure why it's not coming wider. We'll figure that out in a second. But yeah, we do want to add some padding to the top to make sure that it's not so squished. So what I'm going to do here actually is to add some spacing. We're just going to add an H1. Actually, no, maybe not, because we already have that, I think, right there, don't we? A register. So yeah, we'll just do padding. Never mind. File.
On your line 17, where you have in value, is that new user comma first name?
Period. It's
Oh, it's-
accessing the new user state, remember? In here,
Okay.
so object. Yeah. Do padding or margin top, I'm wondering. Probably margin top. And this one, we're gonna just do is we're gonna use another dynamic measurement. We're gonna use 1EN. There you go. There's a little gap. Nothing too big.
Yeah, I don't have that, Cliff. Mine's like not showing anything.
What?
When I go to register, just blank.
Really? So on your register page, you have the new user form right here.
Register page.
The register element. You have everything here, right?
Oh, it's empty.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, that's what I need. On user, new user. On change.
While you type that out, I am going to talk about the next bit. We're not going to type anything, so you can keep catching up on the typing. The next thing we want to do is again discuss that on-change item. So right now, if I was actually go back, just I know you're going to be typing, but just 2 seconds. If you go to our form right now and we start typing, try typing in your form. Doesn't pop up, does it?
What do you
Nothing's
mean?
happening.
It does.
What?
I am typing.
And you're getting stuff to see?
Yes.
Then double check, make sure you have value new user first name right here. It tells me you don't.
Oh, yeah, maybe not. Let me see. Value new user
That F name.
dot F name, and those are square brackets.
Nope, they're curly brackets.
Yeah, I'm sorry, curly brackets. Why
Yeah.
is he square, man? Hello?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I have, what? Hold on. Name.
Yeah,
ID.
what?
Yeah, I have an exact same code that you have, and I can type.
Try refreshing your page again.
Yeah, let me, oh, ho. Let's see.
I know yours has that problem, so.
I can type. Why?
Really?
Why can I type? Numbers, letters, everything.
Be able to, 'cause
Huh.
you don't have the on change and it's connected to, what this is doing is displaying what's currently in our state. We have nothing changing state right now. How is yours working? Shouldn't be working right now. Tempted to look at your screen. But at the same time, I don't want to. I kind of do, but I kind of don't because I'm not sure if I'll see anything. But let's take a look. Go ahead.
Sure.
It should not be working.
Let me.
Tells me
show
something's
it.
wrong.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll tell me.
Anybody else's form actually like allowing you to type, or is everyone else has the problem of not being the quote problem of not being able to type?
I
problem
mine's
that
not
I'm
even
expecting.
working.
I can
So-
type like.
I can
Mine's
type
still
in mine.
I cannot.
This is
So scroll down on the right, make sure first that everything on the right is correct on register. So first go to register.
You have
Already.
first
King
says
What's that F name? F name. Is it supposed to be F
Name, oh,
name?
name, he has name. Even then that should be
On the
no,
left,
but
a new user form.
Line, was that 18?
Line
17.
17.
Line 17.
18.
Oh, Jesus.
good catch.
This
That's
is,
quick.
it's the little things, man. Let me see
Yep.
if I can type it. Yeah, no, I can't
Certainly.
type anymore. I
Can't
can't
type
type
anymore.
anymore.
Yep. Okay.
There you go. That was it.
Now it's set to null. All right.
There you go.
Jeff, want us
Thank you,
to
guys.
take a look at yours, see why yours isn't working at all?
Yeah.
Mine's
Hey,
still
what's your-
blank.
What's your
And
name?
Richie's is still blank, so take a look at yours next. So Jeff or Richie, share your screen. Jeff got it. Cool. All right. So what is it doing right now? Or what do we have right now? You have 2 errors. Let's see what the first error message is. You see there, I can see right now what the problem is there. So compare your style to on submit. Is there something different between the style and on submit? Just right here, right from the screen right here. Just look at it from here.
Yeah, I already see it.
So
Nope.
compare this to this. Is there any difference between the two?
Oh, the double.
Nope, the double's fine.
You're
Look before the
close.
brackets. Right before the brackets. What's before the bracket on with the on submit? What's before the bracket?
I can see it now. I just
Too
got
far.
out.
What's before the bracket?
Or between the brackets and style.
Oh, right here.
No.
Missing an equal
No.
sign.
Oh, did there?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, good. You see it now. Yep. Equal sign. Get that equal sign in there. So let's do that first. I did see it said 2 errors, so this might not fix everything yet. Yeah. Hold on. Let him do it. There we go. That's 1. Let's say there's another error. So let's go back to the screen now and see what the other error is.
Cannot resolve.
Comment input. So we cannot find that. So let's go see. Do you have that file?
In off.
Have it.
Right here.
Well, it says an off.
It's just an off. I don't understand an off.
Maybe like the import is
Right
wrong
here.
for some reason.
It is
Off
importing
and off
from
and
off.
common are separate files, right?
Yeah, they are.
I see it.
You do?
Your semicolon is inside your.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh, that's
That's a tricky one. That I
What
didn't
a
see that
catch.
yet. Nice catch.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't see that yet.
Freaking.
Okay,
evil
that
eye
worked.
Taylor over here.
There we go.
Ooh.
Cool.
Oh,
Everything
oh,
working
right.
now?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Anybody else? Richie?
Me. Yes.
All right, let's go.
Bugs.
You guys solving stuff. Love it. All right, so you got a blanks page, you said, right?
Yeah.
Now you did try refreshing, right? Just a sanity check.
Yeah, I did.
Alright.
And
Oh,
I
you got
killed
nothing.
the
Okay,
I killed the app and I restarted it and everything.
good.
Do it again.
Oh, you do it again, but that's fine. Let's go to the home screen, make sure the home screen works. I'm not seeing anything. There's not even a nav bar, and that should be showing up. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we got that.
Oh, I
Login
like
should be
his
blank.
picture.
Oh,
Should be a nav
login
bar there,
breaks
though.
it. What the hell? Go back one?
Could-
Oh, sign up also broke too. What the hell?
Can you inspect on
Yeah,
that?
console. Here we go. We got some errors.
Oh, wow, all sorts of errors.
Scroll
What
up to the top one. Look at the top one first. Always look at the top error. Objects are not valid as React on development. React child found. Object keys. If you meant to render a collection of children, we use an array instead. Okay. And this is in where? What file?
Login.
Login. All right, let's go to look. Oh, wait, login shouldn't be because login is an empty page.
No routes match and login.
Wait, why is this all in login? This should be in register. Oh wait, you've moved forward.
That's what I was trying to mess around with. It's not
Oh,
the
okay. Like, wait,
It's
why do
probably
you
us
have
talking.
stuff here?
I forgot
Okay.
about that. I was doing something earlier. One. Okay.
It's fine.
No.
Unless you're trying to load, you might be loading login now on your nav bar and stuff. Though, so yeah, see, it's now yelling at you, no round smash login. First, let's go to your router though. I just make sure that's fine.
App router.
Yeah, so,
Where's that again? Down here.
router folder. Yep. Yeah, can you delete line 17, please? Because, and actually, before you do anything, actually, go undo that quick. I found your problem right there. It's trying to load. Undo. Anybody see the problem here?
Yeah, the path to
says
sign, it's
sign
on
up.
line 17. He has sign up.
Yeah. It's trying to load both register and login at the same time. So we just want to yeah, either change, you can just change that to login.
Login. Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Save that. Now let's go back to your application. Let's refresh. Because now it won't try to load the login component unless you go to login. So now just refresh the page. Might still yell at us though, because login is now broken. So maybe we do want to comment that line out, but no, hold on, it shouldn't.
We have that line. Mine has
We
it.
don't. I don't think I put that in yet. I didn't add that to mine.
On app router.
Yeah, no, I just have the two.
I could take it out.
Go for it. Yeah, kill it.
Oh, that's right. No, I took mine.
And that
out
means
too.
you have to eliminate line 6 as well. Because it's
Yeah.
line 6 that's causing it to read the code and break. So save. Refresh again. Go back to the home screen. Let's go back to the main screen.
The main
So
screen.
just the home page. Get rid of the word sign up on the localhost. I didn't say that.
If I were to.
No, on the URL. Just get rid of the word sign up in the URL
Oh, okay.
to the home screen, the home page. Yeah. Go. Click on sign up. Let's see if we can still get the error messages. Okay, what's happening here? Scroll to
There
the
you go.
top. All right.
There we
What's
go.
going on
Now
here?
React. Running.
So object with keys. Oh, hold on. I know what it's trying to go. Go to your register page. Go to register now. Scroll down here. Okay, I know what he's doing. Anybody see the problem?
Oh, I think so.
Try to guide him, Matt.
I just want to make sure before I start saying anything. Where are you? Yeah. It's in your, the issue is with your new user form.
These right here, these are props, right? Are they actually props though right now? Richie, nope, where you going? I'm asking you about those things. Are these actually props of a tag or not?
No,
Why not?
because it's not props that.
Well, they're not inside of a tag, are they?
Oh, they're not inside of a tag.
They're supposed to be, those are part of, those are the props for new user form. So that closing bracket should be under those. Right, Matt?
Yes. Those all have to be wrapped inside there.
Reverse,
Well,
not like
Not
that.
quite like that.
They're props,
Oh.
not children. Now they're children.
Now they're children.
Well, don't you, oh, well, yeah. Oh, okay.
So you need to, yeah, you need to get Nope.
Close. Again,
Nope.
look at
Yeah.
these props. Look how
you wanna-
these work, and then look how this works.
Oh,
The
this
difference
supposed to
between
be
the splash
inside of
props
the,
and these props.
supposed to be inside of the tag.
There you
Yes.
go.
There you go.
Precisely.
Whoops.
You probably should have put a space there. Undo. After the word form, put a space after before new user. M in form. Space. There you go. And then get
And
rid
you
of that
can
N.
get rid of that N at the end of line 43. Yeah, that
And
should do it.
There you
Hold
go.
on, to perfect the styling, that closing item should be on the next line
Right.
and then unindent. Perfect. Looks
Perfect.
beautiful now.
There you go.
Now let's look at your page. Did you save first, by the way?
He did.
Yeah, auto save.
Okay. Wait, what?
Oh, there.
you have that
That's-
enabled.
That's better.
Yay, we have what we want. And we don't have the placeholder yet in yours, but it's fine.
Okay.
Better than it
We'll
was.
check that later. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Well done, everybody. All right. Good work, everyone. Whew, that was a lot. All right. So make sure the last thing for you, Richard, just make sure you get the placeholder in there. And then again, if you type, nothing shows up. That's what I want right now. So again, the reason why when we type, if we double check this, when we type in there, we're getting nothing. Right now, our value is set equal to whatever is inside of new user.f name. Well, what is the state or what is the value of new user f name?
Blank.
It's an empty
And is
string.
there, yeah, it's blank. And are we changing it at any point?
No.
Nothing we're doing right now is changing it. We do have this method called onChange that we want to use to update fields when changes are made. Input fields also have an onChange method. How onChange works though, onChange itself is an event function. So it's an event prop. It's an event property. What that means is going to trigger a function. And that function provides an event handler, E, which you commonly see. Usually refer to that as E. It's very common. You'll see that all the place. So even though I don't like the letter E, it is what is most common. So I want to make sure you guys know what you're dealing with when you see that everywhere. And then it does this. So we go into a function. If we were to just provide our onChange prop that we gave, that's not going to work, and why? Our onChange is a prop that we sent to new user form here. OnChange is our function update form. So why will that not work?
Because it's not a function.
Update form is a function.
Yeah, but you're not passing it through. Passing it through a function though. You're just calling it straight.
Right. And since update form does not match the format of onChange, which is an E function, it's not going to work. E is going to get stuck here in field. So field will take the place of E. And that's not going to work now. What we need is what I like to call a pass-through function. So very similar to what we've done in Java, pass-through systems. We've talked about that before, passing the baton. All we want to do here is create a pass-through function inside of our form to take the event handler, the onChange event handler, and pass out of the event handler the information our update form wants. Our update form simply wants to know what the field that got changed and what that new value is. That's all it wants. It doesn't need the whole event handler.
So
So-
the field is basically the variable, and the value is the return.
Well, kind of,
Okay.
no. Yeah,
Well,
what was changed? Again, you'll see in a second.
okay.
Yeah, so what we want to do is take that event handler, which has the item that triggered the event and the new data of that item is going to be inside of this event handler. What we want to do is grab that item and use it. So we're going to do right here. We're going to do handle change. Const E here. What we're looking for is the target. And so target is a term used for the element that actually triggered this event. So target is the element that triggered the event. It's just standard HTML, Java stuff, JavaScript stuff, HTML, JavaScript stuff. So what we're going to do is do update form or do onChange call the on-chain method we sent. Send it e.target.id. That's our field. And if you remember correctly, our ID is, we make sure that our ID matches the item here. That is intended. This is why our ID must match the entry in our state, because it's going to use ID in order to update it. The next item is e.target. This is the easy one, dot value. Why we use the term value. It makes it easy on ourselves. That's all we're doing. This is what the pass-through does. Instead of passing the entire event handler to our update form method, we're just going to extract out of the event the items we care about. Bless you, Jeff.
Thank you.
No problem. Any questions on that?
You just basically rewriting the code there and then just be able to just pass a variable or a function through here and make it easy.
And now that the handle change has the same signature as the on-change function wants, this E, that is a function, we can now just give this handle change. Just to showcase it, just so you see it, there is another way you might see this happen. You might see it do something like this. We'll see E arrow on-change E.target E.target. This is another way we could do it. The problem is I now have to type this E dash multiple times, and I have to type this multiple times for every single input field. I don't want to have to do that. So that's
okay,
why
I see.
we've done this, and now I can just type handle change on each and every one. I don't have to type this out on every single input field. I can just type handle change in every single input field.
Hmm.
Sound good?
Yes.
So are we going to be rewriting ID several times then based on the fields that we need?
Yes. So whatever field, this should match whatever field it is. Yes. You'll see that as we go.
Yeah.
Back to
Okay.
change. Then honestly, a lot of this is one of those few items that I kind of get annoyed with because I haven't found a way to make this kind of programmatic. But it is a bit of copy paste. So copy this input field, paste it in. Now we're just going to change these to L name. Name. L name. There we go. Done there. Have that. Let's save it and make sure that our form looks correct and that we can also update these two items. So we can actually type in them. You have a minute to type that out. Make sure you get that all in there.
What about required?
What's that?
What
I
about
haven't done that
required?
with, I'm not going to do that for these. Per se, I might do the required on the first name, not the last name. But I was going to use that on email and password more. But could do that there. That's all you got to do. We don't do required equals true. Just by putting the term required here, it's now a existing prop. And so React sees that as true once you type it in. So by typing the prop with nothing, it is considered a true. It's just syntactic sugar for you guys to make it nicer for you guys, because this is kind of very reminiscent of the disabled and required fields in normal JSX, normal HTML. So in normal HTML, in the input field, you would just put required. You wouldn't do required equals true, or required equals yes, whatever like that. You would just type the word required, and that would make it required. So this is something that JSX does by putting this here and not giving it an equal sign. It does it as if it's true. All right. So yeah, we'll do the required on the first name. We'll do it on the last name. So that, then pop back over to our form now and just make sure. Oh, wait, why are those on the same different lines? What the hell?
Your inline input container is broken.
It shouldn't be. I feel like this div is broken. Why are you so small?
Is it because you have display flex not set to row? I know we used row on one of them, or column, that told it to put them next to each other when we did the buttons.
The default behavior is row usually. And I haven't inherited. Should be row by default.
Flex direction.
Yeah, by default, it should be row. I figure out why it isn't. For the fun of it, let's check. I don't think so. It's wrapping them because it feels like there's not enough room. So I gotta figure out why this is being limited to this size. Why are you limited to size? Computed with.
So I added that thing that you added on the, what is this, the app router to do the element and the sign up. If I add that style to that container, it does actually put them next to each other.
I just added it. Flex direction row. Didn't change it for me. Restricting the width. Min width, max width. Width is there. Why are you being set to that though? Oh, you're aggravating me. Wait, why is it not set to width 100%? Wait, is my container not set to width 100%? It's not. Why did I not put that there? That's impressive. Width. I'm surprised this has actually worked as long as it has. And it should always take up the maximum amount of width. There we go.
That's better.
Yep.
So what did you change?
On my container common component, my common container component, I just added width 100%. Container should always take up the maximum amount of width that's available to itself. Because my form has a margin left and right of 20%. So it has that. I probably should change. It's not really the best size. It's very, very small at times. It's a bit small. Maybe I'll increase that for you guys so you have a little better. We did that for one of our projects, but I've been the happiest with it. There for a second. There's also padding there. Is there padding too? No, it's just margin. Still something off. No, that's fine. Form, do that, and width with 100%. Yeah, see, that's wrong. Okay, good. I say that shouldn't be right. That shouldn't be happening. Weird on the sizing constraints there. I'll have to play with this a bit more later. I feel like my functions are acting weird. Let me just pull out one quick thing. Something quick. I think this is accurate.
All right, I figured out how to put a space in between it.
Looks better on the other application. I'm trying to figure out why. What did I do different between you and this? I'll have to pull up my CSS later and make this nicer because my forms on the project that I built these from are different. I'm not entirely sure why. Something missing in one of my CSSs. I'll have to figure that out after. I will add that on. We'll do that on Tuesday. We'll make a slight adjustment to some of my common components once I figure out why. There. I will check on that later. Let's keep going with the lessons. We can build out this form. It's still gonna look good though. Forms still look fine. It's still gonna look better than a default generic form that you guys have. So, too concerned, just a little surprised on that. Very confident. I just pulled this out of that. So the styling should be the same. That's perfect. Fine. Where's my line height? Okay, I've seen some stuff that's missing. All right, interesting. I will look at that and I will update this. Actually, let's add one. This is actually, no, I'm not gonna add that one. What was I doing? Font size 18, yep, that's correct. Watercolor, fine, all that stuff's fine, all that stuff's correct. Height auto, yep, it's there.
You have margin set to 0.
Yeah, I don't want any margin on the input field. The margin comes from the form and from the inline form component. It's in there. Now, let's just do one last thing. Compare my container here to your container. I don't have a container, do I? All right. Yeah, I'll check on that later. I don't want to keep digging on this right now. The forms that I'm using on another page are a little bit different. I will figure that out later. And I will update this once I figure out why it's different. Anyway, for now though, let's keep going because overall it'll work. Yeah, CSS is a pain. That's all I'm gonna say. Choose form. We have our first name and last name. What should we ask for next?
Email.
I go with email.
Email,
Makes
yeah.
sense to me. Yeah, I like it. So input. Do name. Email. ID. Again, this has to match what we have in our form, which again, that was email. Our state value is going to be, so again, user. Email. Placeholder will be, and I don't actually have to put this in this curly brackets. I don't know why I do, but I'm going to do just to keep consistent. Address. And then on change. A change. We're also going to add an extra one to this one. So I mentioned before, type. There's some alternatives you can put in here that can help with validation. And so in this case, we're going to go ahead and put email. What this will do is make sure that the form will actually validate this field for us and make sure that it fits a email format that has the @ symbol and the dot. It's not going to validate that it's a valid email, but it's going to at least put some standard validation to at least make sure it's in an email format that an email provider, that an email system would accept. As long as
It
like
checks for an @ sign and it checks for,
or a dot after the
For a
@ sign.
dot.
correct.
So yeah, you can do a at
Yes.
a.com or
a@8.a.
yeah, exactly.
That is allowed, even though that's not valid at all. It will be accepted. So it's going to do massive amounts of validation, but just at least it says it has to at least be an email format, which is helpful. Next one. What should we go next? What do you think? We have only password and license number next. Because again, we're not actually going to be accepting is member from this. That's going to be, we know that the backend requires it, but this form is not requiring it.
We go with password.
Sure. Fits me, because again, we usually do email then password, so I'm okay with it. And input. And this time we want to save a little time so we can get to the rest of it. Let's go ahead and copy that and reuse it. That. So we're going to do password. What this does, this protects the field. This is going to give you those dot motions. So here, let's just double check it, make sure it fixes though. We'll do this. Password. 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 Those, and just to pop back quick, if I start typing here, we'll see we get the stars that we're so used to seeing on any sort of protected field. So a input with type password gets you those stars, little dots, and those stars, and just again the protected field that you want. Bring that. And so you don't use this for just passwords. You use this for any field that you want the data to be hidden. So let's say you were actually doing something that involved actually asking the user for their social security number, for example. You would probably want to do the same thing. You'd use type password in order to ensure that the data is hidden. That makes sense? Anywhere you want that hidden data, do type password.
So in that case, what is the format for showing last 4 digits? Because they do that sometimes with social security numbers, credit card numbers on forms.
Yeah. As the person is typing it, you wouldn't show the last 4. You would just you would use the password for while they're typing it. Later on, you would just mask the initial data. You wouldn't even actually have the front end load the data. You would just pull from the API the last 4 digits anyway.
I see.
And you would use
Okay.
substring on that.
Right, substring, X out everything
Yeah.
but the last 4 characters.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
And usually, you usually see like all your characters that you're typing into the field. Just when you submit the form, you see only the last 4 digits, everything else is all blocked off.
Now, if you wanted to, what you could do, of course, is after the person leaves the field, you can check the length of that item and say if the length is of a certain length, then display the last 4 characters. It's a little trickier to do and requires a little more effort, but it is something you could theoretically do.
And
I've
then
also seen a lot of forms that are like they segment it into like 3 different things. The first 3, the
Yeah.
next 2, and then the last 4.
Yep.
So you could always make one of them a password.
Mhm. And a lot of things you can also do more aggressive stuff on the on-change function. So you can do some stuff where when the person enters a key, you can actually validate that the key is a valid entry as well. So on the on-change for this, again, let's go back to the social security system. We would only want numbers for that. So what you can do is on the on-change, if the newest character, the last character, so just as we access individual elements of a string in JavaScript, we can just use the bracket notation. You can grab that last character and say, hey, is it a number? If it isn't, don't update the form. And that, as we know, when you don't update the form, whenever you type, that it doesn't apply it to the field. So if you don't update the form, whatever they typed is ignored and lost. So you can only update the form if they enter a number. So there's a lot more you can add to this stuff. You can do real-time data validation as they're typing stuff in to make sure that they're typing in valid characters.
So how complex is it to include a tick box to show passwords? Some sites allow that.
Not too difficult, because all that thing would do is it would be a state change to change password to type to text. That's all. That's all it's actually doing. If you actually do inspect the element, you would note that all they're doing is changing type from password to text. That's it. Yep. Cool.
Hey, do
Any
you want to make
questions?
that password on line 49 a capital P?
Where? Oh, thank you. Visually appealing to the user. And then one last one, we're gonna do this one quick by just copying the whole thing here. And this is gonna be our license number. So I'm just gonna copy that, so I'm typing license. I'm gonna type it here, I guess.
You could have just pasted it in and you just add the space.
Yeah. Then here, text.
What?
Again, I'm doing text
validation
because
on
some
password
license.
Entering it in?
Hold on. Stay focused. This one, we are going to use text just because, again, license numbers may have characters. I know some licenses start with like an A or something. But I will say again, if you want to, if you do something like number here, this will only allow numbers. It will even add the up and down arrows, just so you can see what it looks like. If I do that, save it and go back here, you'll see license number is now only allows numbers to be entered. And we also have the up and down arrows here for increment and decrement, which is really nice to have.
Cool.
Probably should add additional optional fields to this called step, which means when you click on this, how much it jumps, but I don't feel like adding that to my input comment component yet, because I haven't needed it. But good there, that should be everything. So we have all that there. So you see
You want to
again,
change that back to text, don't you?
yes, I do, thank you. We did that actually, last thing I want to say. So we have all of our fields here. The last thing we need, of course, is our submit button. So let's go ahead and add the last item here, down on the bottom here. Gonna bring in our button, again, the common ones, we get all the fancy items, so it's not recognizing it again, so back to the top. I want to save me time today. We import everything manually.
So I have two questions. One is if we wanted to actually do a confirmation of password, we could just write a method in here just to ensure that the first one meets the second one. And
During the
just
on
have-
submit process though, yeah, you would do it during on submit. So yeah, you would just
Okay.
copy this field here, put it in either in the same things that side by side, or copy this and put it underneath. And what I would do is call it confirm.
Okay.
So you have password and confirm, and you would also have to add it to state. So you have to add it here, and then another form here. And then during the on submit function, we would then of course validate that net. And if it fails, we would error right away.
And the other question I have is, would prop types be any useful in any of this
Yeah.
section? Okay, all right. just
I would
wanted to
be,
know yes or no on that,
it's one
yeah.
of the things that I kind of wish I did. And when I made these, I never intended to share them with anybody. So I never thought of adding prop types. I thought they were going to be just used by me. And I didn't feel like taking the extra time because unfortunately that is extra time consuming. When I was working on this for clients, I didn't want to take any extra time that I needed because it was just me. So now that you guys are, I'm sharing with you guys, I kind of wish I had done the prop types that you had that predictive text on IntelliJ. I mean, on Visual Studio Code, but yeah, I'm going to add it later. Anyway,
No,
last
that's
thing I'm going to
okay.
do, of course, still quick is just add the required to the email and password. Those, cool. We now added our button. The button again, there are some things you add to it, but since this is going to be a default submit button, we actually don't need to give it anything. We don't need to give it an on submit item like we've done before. This is by default a submit element. So by default, it's considered a form submitter. And since we gave it a on submit function, it's just going to do something. To confirm it's going to do something, what I'm going to do is on our on submit, I'm just going to add a quick little alert. Alert? Yeah, just alert, sorry. Submitted. Just we see a little pop-up window for the second. Go back here. We got our button. Go ahead and do, and actually I'm gonna delete these first, do nothing in there first. Let me just refresh the page actually, so all that's cleared out. If I click submit right away, we're gonna get told to fill out our first name. All right. I fill that out and then be like, I'm gonna be evil and do nothing else. And come right, fine. Email address, fine. Let's do, I'm just gonna do Cliff. No, I'm gonna do an @ symbol as well. All right, fine. There we go. But again, no, passwords required. So see how this is nice? Right now, we haven't even tried to send anything at all. This is just the front end doing validation, which is nice. So
I must have
Just
missed the
give the
part where
back
you.
end running.
I did do that quick. Sorry. I added the requireds to password and email as well. I just added this
Okay,
quick.
it's just that simple though. All right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Did you
I
have-
threw those in fast.
Do you have the back end running just so you can do this right?
Not
Oh, we
yet,
don't even
no.
have a request in here, so I
Yeah.
don't, you won't even access.
Not there yet, so don't worry about it. We're gonna run that in a second. Yep.
No, I just remembered now.
Mhm.
Okay, nice.
All good. Got all those. I am going to bring in one more item, add one more item to our application to source. This is going to be useful for later on to make things easier on us. And I like to call this config.js. This is where I can put in a lot of like static values. And one of the items that we're going to be using fairly often is going to be our host URL, right? And that's going to change depending on where we upload our application. In the beginning, our host URL is going to be localhost. Well, later when we push this to what's the word I'm looking for? To OpenShift.
AWS.
Yeah, OpenShift or AWS, Red Hat and all that stuff. That host URL is going to change. You remember back with Geeky Likes, we had to go and find all the locations we had localhost, right? Instead, it's going to be beneficial for us to put a single location where that variable is stored. And that's what this is going to be useful for. This is going to provide us a location where we can then bring in a bunch of variables and just set them. And that way there's one spot for all of them.
Yeah, that's
We
really
might,
smart.
thank you. Appreciate that. Don't need the praise, but yeah, this is going to help us out and make our life a little bit easier. So anytime you have a variable that you're using constantly, you can add that variable here and then just import it. And so I'm going to do export.
Oh, I saw this actually on something I was watching.
Const host URL.
Something that you would put on git ignore, so you don't have to have like all your variables like exposed.
If you needed to, yes, you could put that there. Unfortunately, this is something we will want to also have available for us in production as well. So we probably want to keep it here.
Okay.
And I'm not planning to put anything secure here. Nothing secure should ever go on your front end because that can be found via inspection elements, via inspect. Again, just to showcase some stuff. So via inspect, I could of course look at the HTML elements. But there is still another area that I could be really, really aggressive on. If I go here and I go to sources, I can actually pull up the JavaScript files of stuff too.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
And so I can see the bundle file and you can see here, there's my app file right there. Yes, it's very cryptic. I can do a control F and I can search for keywords. So I could look for API key if I wanted to. And if you use the term API or API key anywhere in your code, I could most likely find that item. And that's dangerous, right?
I wonder if this is why that governor is calling this hacking, because he has some very bad people working on the government sites. I'm not kidding, though.
Only half though. That's
I can understand to someone like that mayor, to that governor, this looks very aggressively geeky and like, no human should be able to understand this. Like it doesn't need to be human understood. I don't need to understand what's happening here. I just need to search for keywords. And that's me just searching.
There you go.
I didn't write a program to do this.
Yeah, you can see the new user form down below here on submit, on change, on new user.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
here. It's just,
Yeah.
and this is what Babel is doing for us. This is what ES6 is being deconverted into. So when we do our build project, if we wanted to, if we weren't using what is called Webpack and Babel, we would have to type this out for everything that we're doing to work. So be aware that that's what we're
same
saving.
on
What's
if
that?
if you inspect and go on sources on a page that's not React, you're gonna see everything, every
yeah.
single file. It's so easy to find everything.
And I've done this before with other sites to help make sure I understand what is happening on a site to find what I'm looking for, to make changes, to make fixes too. So I've used this page also just look and see how other sites are doing what they're doing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because yes, sometimes this can be very, very formatted to not be user friendly. There's a concept known as also minifying code. So minifying code takes all your human-friendly text and minifies it to what Java, the bare minimum that JavaScript requires. So all your variables are reduced to like A and B and C, and that's it.
That's a .min file, right?
Yeah. The purpose of that, again, is for bandwidth. So it is for bandwidth saving to minimize the size of your file. Overall, the main thing here, again, is I would never put anything API related or secured on the front end because that could be found. Anytime I need to communicate with any sort of API-based system, I'm sending that to have the backend do it. The backend should be doing it. The server should be communicating with any services that require some sort of authentication from me. That makes sense? Okay. Only thing I'd ever send to the front end to have done is a token provided by the user. So if I was using like OAuth to do something Twitter-based, then I'm okay having the front end have the user's OAuth token that allows me to do stuff on their behalf. Because yeah, if they get that OAuth token, they can still only act as themselves. Does that make sense? So OAuth tokens allow you to act as someone else on a service. So when I have a Twitter OAuth token, I can act as that user on Twitter as if I was logged in as them. This, of course, like I said, this is a secured item because again, I can only have that OAuth token is only valid for that person. So I wouldn't be okay. I would be okay with the front end doing that, but nothing else. None of my keys should be on the front end, if that makes sense. I should never have any of my keys on the front end. That should all go through the server. even with the weather API, just go for the server. Keep your stuff safe. Like I said, all of you listen to the Darknet Diaries know you gotta.
That's what I was
Okay.
just gonna say that if you listen to Darknet Diaries, never do anything in front end.
Yeah. I forgot, Leah, how long you've been here. You probably aren't someone who's been listening to that podcast. It's one of the first podcasts I recommend to everyone here when we first start.
Are you kidding me,
Is-
Cliff?
What? You actually know it? I recommended it to you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember. I'm forgetting who I've recommended it to now.
Everyone.
I recommend it to everyone because yes, it's just useful. It can teach you a lot about just computer science. It's a way to, like I said, if you can't code, at least you can entertain yourself.
Jack is
Awesome.
just Cliff with a voice changer. He's showing his own podcast to us.
Like I have time.
I wish that was the case.
That's
but
the
he's
reason
been
you don't have
promoting
time.
his Patreon and a whole bunch of other things, and I don't think Cliff has time for a Patreon.
I do not.
I think he has time, and he does not have time because of all that work.
There you go.
Darknet Diaries gives me ideas of what I can do.
There you go.
That's
Jesus.
terrifying.
Seriously, actually, I've heard some listeners like, I should do this because that guy made a lot of money. And I'm like, wait a minute, maybe not, because this guy got caught. So then I remind myself right after that, I'm like, this guy made that much money doing this? Maybe I should do it. Oh, wait a minute. No, he got caught. Never mind, I shouldn't do this.
The
Yeah, but
casino
that's the whole
episode was
point. So you try
crazy.
not get caught. You have to alter what he
I
did.
think I'm mid at that
You know
episode
what
right
he
now. Actually.
did to be able to fix it.
Anyway, focus back to learning. So it should be ://localhost :3000. And again, I don't put the last slash. That last slash comes later on as needed, as just because I'm used to seeing that and stuff. So if you're more used to not putting the slash, you can put it here, but I don't put the slash here, and you won't see that in my code moving forward. And that slash matters. So be aware if you do or do not add that. All right. So what this is going to allow us to do, like I said, is now everywhere else we don't have to put our host URL. Now, the second half of the URL is going to be the same no matter what. Now, this is localhost for the application we're running on. I just remember though, this is actually for the React app. Where does our Java app run actually? What port is that
8080.
again?
8080.
Yeah, we want that one, sorry. Let's do that one actually. Let's do the right API. And we can also clarify this by saying API host URL if you want to make sure it's very, very clear what it is. So you can understand it perfectly. So like I said, this is what changes. When this is when we're running it locally or we have it on AWS on OpenShift, when we want to access the user system, the endpoint is the same, right? It's just this part that changes, right?
Mhm.
And so this is what we need in the variable. So when we're ready to upload this, we just change this variable here when we go to push it. One last thing I'll say is there is the environment variable, and we might do this later on if we do decide to put this on OpenShift, is having a dev config and a prod config. And we will load the file depending on whether or not our environment variable of node.env, node.env is production or development. And so we might even look at that later on. Minimum, worst case scenario, we just change this right before we push it to OpenShift. So it points to the correct destination. All right, so we got that. And as we need more, we'll add more to this file if we need it. Sometimes depending on the project, this file can be very, very bare and very, very minimal. Sometimes this file can get very, very large depending on what I need. So, but it's a very useful file and I do like having it for my front end. Saves me for a lot of effort later on. So with this, we can now start building out our onSubmit function. So we can actually submit our form to our backend. So as Jim said, let's actually run. So it's probably been a while since we've opened it, but let's go ahead and open up our car rental app on IntelliJ and get that running. So I have it open already. Go ahead and do the run command. Go. Get that started. My other notes open, or if I kept those closed? I didn't have my other notes open either. God dang, I had nothing open. Wonderful. Goodness.
Anyway, we could do a mock this part of the login, do a mock to make sure it's actually working in React while having a backend running.
Sorry, what?
Can we, is there any way of doing this, submitting this form just to see if it actually is working without having the backend actually working?
What do you mean?
like, just to know if it's returning what we're inputting in, just to have a mock return.
A mock return.
Yeah, just to
Got it.
say that if we actually submit this, is it returning what we're typing actually all in? Is there a way of actually doing that without actually having the back end actually working? Is there a way of
Print the
testing?
results of our new user item to the console, I guess, because right now I click and I get these submitted. So what I
Right.
can also do, of course, is on here, like, and whenever you're trying to do troubleshooting, T, not D, troubleshooting, it's good to just print a console, and that's another useful item. So I'm gonna first do console
Okay.
log data or new user. Let's see what we get. So we do that. Go to the form. I'll do the inspector. Open up the console, and then I'll hit console. Then I'll hit submit. Submitted, and there is my form.
Oh, there we go. Oh, perfect. Okay.
This
good.
is the data I'm going to send. Now, is there anything wrong with this data?
No.
Yeah, it's in clear text.
It's going to be in clear text unless we use HTTPS. So
Oh, it looks perfect.
it does? Oh, okay.
I don't know. Wait a second. Wait a second. Does it?
Matt, is this what your sign up system is expecting for both username, for both the user and the profile?
No, I think there's only one name
Correct.
field.
Always good to remember your system. And I didn't look at this before, so in case anyone's thinking I'm cheating, I looked at this before. I didn't. I just remember this because that's how I had you guys write our developer item. But if we go back to customer quick and take a quick peek, we don't have first and last name, we have name. And we always want, this is something we tend to like to do. If you just ask users for a name, you're just going to get a first name. If you want someone's full name, and this isn't a requirement. This is just understanding human behavior and designing what's called a intelligent UI and UX. So UI UX is a field in itself and is a field of research. So anyone knows what UX stands for, other than hold on, before you, I don't know if anyone heard that, but before, other than who was it, Eridan, you can't answer because you're a front end person, so don't answer this. What is UX?
User experience.
User experience, I think. Yeah.
Everyone knows this. Good. Okay. User experience.
I know it from a different place, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's from
Good. Everyone knows this. Awesome.
I've seen it. I didn't.
And we know UI, just for the sanity check, is
User interface.
thank you. I figured I'd keep throwing the UI term out, and it's good to make sure everybody's on the same page. Not everybody has to know this stuff, so it's good that you know what these abbreviations are. UI is UX, stands for user interface and user experience, and these work hand in hand. The concept is that your user interface should improve the user experience, and that's the concept of UI and UX. You can do UI without caring about the UX. But if you want to have a good project, a good front end, you should definitely have your UI should be inspired or be designed around the user experience. And so this is one of my main ways of introducing UX to people. If you have a name field, good luck getting the person's full name. You're probably just going to get their name, just their first name, and that's it.
Even if you put in the placeholder first name, last name.
Yeah, that's definitely going to get you a better result, but not the best. Again, yeah, just people don't try to, if you give them a single field, you're not always going to get it. I will say that's definitely better than just saying name. But yeah, if you just ask someone for their name, they're just going to give you their first name 9 times out of 10. If you create separate fields, there's this weird habit out of us to not leave empty fields. We don't like to see empty items when something's asking us for something. And that's why placeholders also are valued higher than labels nowadays. Again, we want these things filled in. We just have this natural human habit to want to fill things out. So we're more likely to fill things out. Now, again, not every human fits this need. You may be perfectly fine leaving fields empty. I'm just talking about the majority. And that's a lot of times what your UX is trying to do. Your UX is trying to hit the majority of people, trying to get maximum results. You're not going to get 100% on everything because people are too varied, people are too different. You're just trying to get the majority of the people to fit the results you want. And so 2 separate fields for first and last name is going to get you the highest probability you're actually going to get a first and last name from somebody. Yeah,
I agree with that because I will fill in a form minimum as possible But
Mhm.
with Google's autofill, it just fills out the form completely. I'm like, I'm set with that. Let's go.
It's why Google created that. Honestly, Google created that so that their forms that they ask people to fill out get filled out max as much as possible. So Google did that for themselves primarily, and then allowed other people to have it because it's just nice to have. So
Yeah.
the rest
Now,
of the
if
internet was
only-
like, we want this.
If only you could
So.
use that on job applications.
True. Yeah. So
Please
this
submit
is
your
So
resume.
user experience is all about designing your form in a way that makes the user enjoy their experience on the site, and also makes it that the user's interface is self-explanatory. You have a good UI UX if your user can use it without a tutorial. If they can intuitively use your site, then you have a good UI and good UX. That is the concept of UI UX. UI UX is around the idea of that that a user should be able to come into my system, into my application, and be able to utilize this application without a tutorial, and without instructions. If they can do that, then you have a good UI UX. It is something that companies will do A/B testing on to see how intuitive is this. Can people intuitively go to this location in order to do stuff? And that's where colors play a role in this. Location of items play a role in this. There's a bunch of little small things that are it's all based on human research, researching humans, and just doing A/B testing and analytics in order to figure out what is the optimal setting for a site in order for people to utilize it without any sort of instruction or information. Again, this is a show that I feel like I should have finished watching, and I never only made it through season 1. And I'm aggravated that I did this, but Silicon Valley was another example of this concept. The show Silicon Valley had a concept of this where they talked about like their application was good, but they weren't retaining users because the user experience was people didn't understand what it was doing. They didn't see the benefit of the application because no one could understand how the system worked. And so they were like, oh, we can just create tutorials and just do seminars to teach people what the system's doing. And that doesn't work. So even though the application was great, their active users were not growing because people didn't understand the app. And this was causing them issues. So it is another application. It is another site, another show you can watch to, again, benefit from computer science and seeing how the industry works. It's a bit on the extreme side of how the industry works. And so the humor can be a bit crass, but it is hilarious. It is a hilarious show when I watched it, and it can give you another insight to the tech industry of California, the startup industry, really.
It comes out to be a balance of how much information you're supposed to get in, or over information that you're supposed to like. Too much information would be daunting.
There's also the concept of any action that a user wants to do should be reachable within 2 clicks. Anything more, and that if that item is considered a less effective item, and it should only be any action that takes more than 2 clicks should be an action that is not common to do, that a user should not want to do every time they're there. Any common action should be reachable within 1 to 2 clicks. So yeah, if I want to tweet, I click right at the top. If I want to follow somebody, I click the person, click follow. Done. Those are the most common actions on Twitter, and so those actions are easy to get to quickly, right? And that's the concept. Anything that's more complex, that is not a common action, can take more clicks. The less common that action is, the more clicks it can take to get to it. But if it's a common item or something that a user wants to find easily, it should be quickly, and it should be something that you can find easily. This is why support can be the hardest thing to find, because they don't want you to find it. Nothing to do with whether or not you want to find it. It's just they don't want you to find it. Anyway. Moving on from there. So yeah, we got this. We can now see it. We want to now modify it. We now want to play with this data a bit and actually modify it so we send the correct data to our backend. So let's go ahead and update and add to this form name. Remember, we can send this whole thing to both endpoints, to both the register and the the sign up form, sign in, and to create post user. So we can send this entire object to all 3 endpoints. And again, the endpoint will only care about the keys it wants. One of the main benefits of our backend is that we don't have to sanitize and remove all this excess stuff. We can send everything and the backend will take only what it needs. So we're not gonna create a whole new object. We're just gonna add to this object name. We will not add, we cannot add to state though. So we won't be doing new user dot name equals this. We are going to create a new object called data though. Data equals new user. And else I do const. When we do that, so we're going to make a new data, that a new variable that's equal to this, because now we can do data dot name and be safe. All right.
Mhm.
Questions? I'm also gonna get rid of that. These guys here for the time being. We don't want those popping up every single time. So data equals new user, and then do data dot name equals data dot. We're gonna do. I like doing the backtick system, so I can do the interpolate injection, string injection. So I can do $, data dot fname space bracket data dot lname. So far so good.
That automatically concatenates both those together.
Yeah, because we put them in backticks.
Okay.
So we created a string. We just injected the two variables into it with a space in between.
If you didn't do this, you just do the plus and just.
We'd have to do, yeah, we have to do this plus an empty string with a single space in it.
Oh, with a
String
space
with
in
space in
it.
it plus the next name. Yeah. So you don't
Okay.
want Clifton Shonier does have a space between it. I do not want to see my name without a space. And I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that. No. With that, now we're ready to actually push, do our backend requests. So let's understand what our flow is going to be. Computer science, following the flow is important. So the first thing we need to do with this is to create the user account or the user record, the user entity. So we need to post create user. We have to double check what the route for that is. But we want to do a post create user. We may not even use the word post. We just do create user first. Start with that because we know that that's post. If you think about CRUD, we create the user. We're then going to go ahead and create a login or log in. So we're going to log in. So we have the authentication key because we need that in order to do what? What's the last step?
Authenticate.
Well, that's what login does, right? Login authenticates. Why do we need the authenticate? We need authenticate to do what's the third step? Or do?
To sign in. Is that login and sign in?
That's
the
what
same
this is
thing?
doing. Yes. Why are we signing in though? What's the third step? So we created the user record, but user record takes what out of this data? What does the user require out of this? The
Email
user
and
entity.
password.
It just requires email and password, right?
Right.
The user entity only cares about this information. Why is all this here?
Because then we
That's
have
to
to
create
create.
that's create a create a customer.
From our backend, right? Our rental app has a customer record. And so we want to create a customer record. And so we want to create customer. Customer must be attached to a user. And this is the item that needs an auth token, right?
Mhm.
This is why with what Jeff said, we need to authenticate because we need that auth token to create the customer and link it to the user. So create user, then we log in to get the token. We use the token to create the customer. See that flow? Do you understand what that flow is doing now? All right. With that, since there's these three separate things, I'm going to create three functions for each of these steps. That way I don't get massively nested or anything like that. And I can know each item as it goes. And if any one of these steps fail, I know that I want to go to that function in order to make changes in order to fix it. That makes sense?
Mhm.
What time are we at anyway? We're already at 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Dang it. Yeah. Well, let's try. Maybe we can do the create user only. Damn it. I was hoping we had a little more time.
Everybody be quiet. He'll do all three of them at once.
I will not. Let's do const create user. This is going to take data. I lost somebody already. Dang it.
Yeah, Nathan.
Or work. Yep. Const create user. In. And take data. Const create customer. This one, I'm gonna give you guys a bit. I'm gonna do data and our token. All right, so those are the 3 steps. We create the user, create user will then log us in, logging in will then, after we log in, we'll then create the customer. All right. We'll do this one first, and then you guys can attempt, I guess, to
Can I
create the
ask
login. Go ahead, yeah.
Can I? Okay, so when you said what you needed to do, it made sense. But why is login before create customer? Wouldn't you need to create a customer and that would generate your token and then you have the ability to log in?
Well, our auth system is based on what entity? Which entity is the auth system dependent on?
I'm gonna say customer because that's what you were saying earlier, but
I don't think I was. But if we go back to our system here, if we look at our security. Here it is. User details. Oh yeah, user, here it is. You see that it's connected to user, right?
correct.
So user here, and that user is there it is the user we created. Our user record that we created. On the same sense, we go to customer controller. Take a look here. So customer controller post mapping. This is where we create a customer, right?
Correct.
So this is the create customer record. Take a look what we have here. This requires authentication details, right?
Correct.
So in order to create a customer, we must already have a token, correct?
Correct.
All right, so that's why I want to make sure we're on the same page. So yeah, that's why login comes before the create customer, because our post new customer route requires a token already. And our token is based on our user entity, not on our customer entity. Because a customer must have a user. A user doesn't technically have to have a customer. Technically, it should in our system, but for all intents and purposes, we can create a user without a customer record.
Yeah, so basically create user is the sign up in Postman when we're doing it. So through this route, we're signing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we think back to the Postman process. Yeah, we sign up first, then we sign in, we take that token to then create the customer record. Same thing in Postman. We're now just doing that in our front end now instead. Any other clarifiers to that, or are we following?
I'm just gonna follow along and maybe it'll make more sense.
Damn. Anybody else? Maybe think you can explain it better than me? How does it make sense to everyone else? I'm open to anyone else trying to explain it.
Yeah, that's why I tried to explain it. It's like create user is basically you're doing the sign up process. And then you do the login to be able to get the token to be able to actually create the user, but you're doing all 3 steps in one step. You're doing all three things. You get every data that you need, getting customer data, and you're creating the user data all at once to be able to pass it through as login to be able to get a token back and to be able to create the user at the same time and be able to create a customer at the same time.
Main thing I'm trying to make sure this makes sense though, again, is just our entire authentication system is based on the user entity, not the customer entity. The customer entity is used to utilize the application. So we use the customer entity for the application where we store the customer information. But the authentication system is based on the user entity, and we always keep that separate. So that way our authentication is separate from our user data. So the user entity and our user's data is considered separate. In this application, our user's data is stored in customer. In our previous application, Geeky Likes, our user data was stored in developer. And so we have user and user data. The user information is just your username and password, and then the role. That's all that should belong in user entity. And that's just, again, user is just authentication. That's all user is. And that's just standardized. Again, these terms can be changed if it makes more sense to you. If you want to have what's just called an auth entity, if user isn't really clicking and really doesn't fit right, you can have this be off. You can have this be customer and have this item be called and have your model be customer data. So this could be called customer and this could be called customer data. It depends on what makes most sense to you. But this is just kind of, I'm trying to show more case the industry standard of just user is used for authentication details. And then you have another model that stores the user's data. Like we keep it separate. So when we ask the backend for that user's data, we never accidentally send the login or the authentication details like their username and their password. We never accidentally send that forward. It makes our life a little bit easier by keeping those two entities separate. That help a little bit? Hopefully.
A little bit.
All right. We'll keep moving forward, but yeah, we can try touching again on later if we need to, 100%. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do the create user process, and then we'll create the rest of the items later on Tuesday. Let's do create user first. Now we can see that we create the record in the database. We won't get a token yet. We'll create the user. We may create the token via Postman, but we'll go ahead and create the user at least. So in this case, we're actually going to, so now we want to make a call to an external system. How do we do that in React again? Remember how do we do that? What do we use?
Axios?
Axios.
Everybody confirm? We all agree? All right. Yes, Axios. We use Axios in order to make calls to our external system. I'll go ahead and bring in that. Since this is not a file, since this is a package, this is a common practice. You'll see packages go at the top, files go underneath. So we usually will do this here. Again, does this make any difference in the code? No, this is just a common practice for organizational purposes, for clean code purposes. Package imports first, file imports second. All right, that makes sense.
Be capitalized, or does it not make a difference?
What? Not in this one, because we're not importing a class. So this isn't a class. No. Yeah. Yep. Good question though. Very good question. The difference between React and UState. This what we're bringing in is a class namespace technically, but this is actually just a function. We're bringing an actual method. So Axios. So I'm going to do that down here. Go ahead and use it. Actually, we need to bring something else in. We'll see in a second. Axios. Axios dot. What verb are we doing for this one?
Await.
You're going to need that in a second. Good call there. That's not technically what I asked for, but true. We do. This is a promise item. But
This is a
Post.
post, yeah.
thank you. Verb, people. What verb? What HTML verb? HTTP verb? We're using the post method here, so post verb. But 100%, catching Richie is 100% right on that. This post is something that takes time. We have to wait for this to finish, right? Because this is, again, this is calling out to an external system that can take time to respond. So this needs to be await, but in order to do await, we'll do all this way. So const, we'll do response, so res equals await, axios.post. But in order to use await, I need something else. Something else I need to do in order to use await. Anyone what that is and where it goes?
Nope.
Wait comes with a wait is part of a pair of words.
Is it a wait and finally?
No, not that.
Okay.
Good guess. Yeah. So await again. What do we call this function?
Async?
Async.
Why async? Do you know what async stands for?
It's asynchronous.
Yes. Yep. That's it. That's it. Asynchronous.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
These methods are asynchronous calls. We need to make sure we are running our code asynchronously. And so we want to make sure that we wait for this to finish. Instead of allowing the code to run asynchronous and move and run the code after this line, we want to make sure we tell it, hey, even though this is an asynchronous method that will allow us to go on while it does it. So normally when we run this is what axios.post does. It says, hey, I'm going to do this and I'll let you know when I'm done. And so JavaScript can continue to doing its work, continue to do stuff. we can tell it to stop and say, oh, no, I don't want to do anything until you let me know what the results are. Or normally if we did that, what could happen is that everything will pause. So that means our entire React application would lock up. That's not good. We don't want that, right? And so what we do is we tell it that this function here, create user, is an asynchronous function. That when this is running, everything else around it can continue to run, but the code inside can wait when it needs to. Everything else can still run. So that's what this async await does for us. We are now making create user an asynchronous function. So the code around it will continue to run, but inside of it, we can tell it to wait for other asynchronous functions to finish. So we'll post. We're going to post to, oh, I need that. What do I need? I need my host URL, don't I?
Yes.
So we'll go here down and do another import. Import from something. I'm going to do the host URL. And it's not right, but hold on. From dot, I think, right? Yeah, because it's outside of components. Yeah.
There's API host URL.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you name it API host?
Added.
It should auto.
But this actually isn't how we want to do this. This is correct technically right now because our config file has a single item in it. I'm going to do something here just for the fun of it. Import const as equals hello. Add another name. I no longer have a single item that is obvious what I want, right? So how we want to do this normally in this case actually is we want to use the bracket case here. So this is when you have a default item that is going to be exported. Remember our export default command? Export default tells it when I'm bringing something in, that's the item I'm bringing in. When I just export a lot of items, I'm supposed to use the bracket thing to pull out the one item I want. So in this case, I'm going to do the bracket and do API host URL, and we can see that it is actually bringing the item in now and can actually find the item. When I was typing API host URL before, it wasn't actually finding it because what it is, it was finding it because of ABC. If you remember correctly, this ABC says I've typed this before. That's why it's finding it. It's not finding it from the file. It's finding it because I typed this before. In the bracket, it's saying, okay, I want to pull a specific exported item from this, and now it's going to actually search the file as I type. So test, and it's going to find test. If I do API, it's going to find that item specifically. So that's the difference between export const and then exporting items versus export default and then giving it an item. What's cool though is I can, in this situation, actually, I can still do an export default. And that way, again, that's what this is doing. React has an export default, which is this guy, and then everything else, like useState, is an export const useState. So I could still put an export default in here as the default item to bring in. And I wouldn't need the curly brackets. But if I don't, I have that. So is that important that you know exactly how that works? Not necessarily, but I want to make sure you at least seen it once so you can play with that and understand slightly how it works. Now we brought in our API host URL, and to make it clean, I'm going to put the spaces there. Nice. That. Go here quick. So we're going to finish this off. I'm going to do the, and this is where, again, I like the idea of the backticks and string injection because it looks nicer and I can put everything in there. So backticks, $, bracket, API host URL, and then the slash. And then what is the route for creating our user?
API /auth/sign up.
I'm happy that Matt knows the URL for his own project.
I only know because I just put it in myself.
Okay. Cool. Again, if we needed to double check that, if we go back here to our application, if we go to the auth controller and go to the top, we can see post auth API here, API auth, and then the post sign in. So again, easy to go find it. If you didn't know it, just be aware of how to look it up so you can find it later. So if you have, by the time you're working on your front end versus when you work on your back end, I wouldn't blame you if you don't remember all your routes. So remember how to look them up. So we got that API auth sign up. After that, we can then do the comma, and now we got to give it the data, the body of the content, which is going to be, of course, data. And then the config is says any additional information we need. At this point, we don't have anything, like we don't need to worry about any sort of token because we don't have a token yet. We're creating the account so that we can then log in later to get the token. So right now, there's no extra information. Once we get this back, I'm going to go ahead and do a response. I'm going to go ahead and do console.log, sorry. Log response.data. And that's what's important. Data is where the body is. So when we get the response back, we're actually going to get what's called a response object. If we're going to print that out, it's going to be this whole bunch of junk from JavaScript. The information we care about that our backend sends us is going to be stored here in data. That's just default. One last thing I want to add, though, just make sure that this works right. I'm going to do a try block or try catch. Try says what this allows us is that if any of the code in this block fails for any reason, even a typo, anything in here fails, I'm going to go ahead and run the catch. Error. There's no commenting there. So error for error. It's in the console error. This is going to make sure it shows in that red format on the console there. Error.message. All right. This is what we're going to finish up with today. Let's see if this works. We'll save that. I'll give everybody a second to finish writing this all out.
With clarification on await, was that something you had to import?
No, async await is built in Java script.
Oh,
That is
that's what I was
JavaScript reserved keywords. Yep, those are JavaScript keywords. Yep.
Thank you.
No worries. Good question. Yeah, think of it the same as like const, try, catch, function, all those items. They're just JavaScript items. Yeah. We didn't have to import const.
Yeah, I just see errors. Oh, wait is not a keyword. Like, wait, what?
All good. Right. Anybody need another minute? Okay, so let's test it. Oh, wait, that's not going to be tested. We actually haven't called the function yet. So here on submit, line 31, we're just going to do create user. I'm going to give it data. Go. A little bit of code. Good. Now we can run it. So showing you Cliff at test.com. I'm actually going to switch this to Cliff1 and do Cliff at test.com. One at test.com. My weird license number and my test password. Go ahead and click submit. Oop, and I got a failed. Dang it. Oh, wait, I don't think, did I actually run the application? I did. Yeah, that's the error. Let's find out. Validation failed. Oh God, what do you have in this validating? Must not be blank username. Oh, you called it username. Got it. I didn't pay attention to that. Yep, username. Didn't pay attention. So we do have to rename our email to username, by the way. So.
And your minimum is 6. Was that 6?
Again, this won't matter because again, we're hashing it. So
Okay.
even though this is here, it's not actually going to do anything because we're hashing it. So it's always going to fit in this, no matter how
Okay.
long our password is. That would have to be a front-end validation, not a database validation.
So you changed the
Yes.
name on email to username?
We're going to do that here, yeah. So we're just going to
Okay.
do on
Oh, you haven't done it yet, okay.
data.name. And here we're also going to do data.username equals data.email. So another way we could have changed it, by the way, is because it's all backend stuff. In our state here, this could actually be set to username in our form here, username, 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 but this location and this location can remain as email. So we could do that to make our front end match it without having to adjust it later. But a faster change right now is just to do this. I'm not too worried about that. All right, so quick change just to make it work. Submit again, still failed, but this time with a 400. 400, what's 400 again? Because it's down maybe, or bad entry. 5. And I'm not expecting. Because it already exists. I guess it already exists, doesn't it? Or let me would actually create a I'm actually not sure. Yeah, 400. Where's bad request? Sorry, maybe you know, just in case. Tester. Yep, still failed. So I add a little bit extra to this, and then we'll finish up. Come on. What's that data dot? Spots. Message. Where is it again? Dot data. Email already in use. Okay. Message. So apparently did say that, or wait, oh wait, I think that's the one I used when we Postman tested it back when we first started using this application. I think when we did Postman, the very, very first time I actually used this email address on Postman, didn't I? Because this is my default to use by default in the beginning. So did anybody else get a 400 or did yours work?
I have a different error entirely.
I'm getting a cores error.
I got mine success. What? Why would we be getting a cores? I didn't do anything with cores on Matt's project, so that shouldn't be happening.
I'm
Start working through.
using my own backend though, so.
Oh, then you might not have your cores configured correctly. We'll start with anyone with this project first, with Matt's project first.
Let me show. I have a role not found, and I don't know what this is about.
Did you remember to insert your roles into the SQL?
That's a great question.
We did that together as a class. Maybe you forgot to do that.
I think I did. Let me see.
I got the same error. Roles not found.
Yeah. So
what did I? This is current. Okay.
I registered successfully. Mine works just like this.
I'm thinking
So
that
is
your
there a
error is
way
going to be
to-
the same. So
There has
Benjamin
to
and
be a way
Richie,
to-
may need to do this too. So start from.
Is it from roles? Nope. It's
I
from
think it's
roles.
roll.
I did not. That's
So-
fantastic.
Richie, you might want to do the same exact thing that Matt's about to do because that's most likely your error too.
I have
Yeah.
notes on this. Hang on. Okay.
So there has to be a way of just writing MySQL injection once the server fires, right? To make sure it's populated with those roles.
There is a way to do it. I think Jim might have actually wrote something to do this for his. Where
I
his-
did mine, yeah.
Yeah,
I am
where
very interested because I have to do the same thing in my project.
where if when the first create user comes in, it'll check to see if the entities exist. If nothing's in there, it'll add them.
Hmm.
So
That's
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Looks like that, right?
looks correct.
That looks correct.
Okay.
Cool. Now just switch to the other 3.
Yep.
So customer, employee, and mechanic.
Oop, wrong one.
Again, Richie, you want to do the same thing? This version, the one we only needed was the customer one, but it's good to have all 4 of them in now, just so we don't have to deal with this again later. So. Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Awesome.
let's try this again.
You shouldn't have to reboot the server because you added the database. There you are.
There it
You're
is.
good. All right.
Hey.
Richie, you need us to
Love
take a look at
easy
yours,
fixes.
or you adding your roles now?
I'm adding it now.
sure yours works. Anybody else have a different error?
Have notes on it too.
No other errors? Good. Let's go on that work then. So now, unfortunately, I have now 2 users, a 1 and 10, that are both going to be kind of orphan users later on once we start doing the actual customers. But it's good for testing. Last thing you can do, by the way, once you got that message saying user registered successfully, you can always, of course, if you want, go into the database and actually make sure it's there. Confirm that it is actually, in fact, existing. You can also just use Postman to try to log in as that user too, as a way to confirm. Just make sure that Jesus is working, and we will end class.
Do we have to put parentheses after role when we enter the name? Let me share
What
my
is it?
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, me
Shows the
having a trouble visualizing how that
Not
goes.
picturing the parentheses, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be parentheses around the name.
Oh,
and
it's name, not
Name,
the
Peter.
Oh,
not someone's name.
yeah.
Insert into
Yeah,
role
but
name.
my,
Yeah.
that's what I was using.
Oh, got it.
Nope, just the name.
That's in my notes. It
That's
says
the-
name also. I should get to.
As the column name. So
There you go.
And then you add the other 3: customer, employee, and mechanic. So employee. Again, the order doesn't actually matter for anyone who's wondering. And mechanic.
That should do it.
have admin,
Let's do it.
but
Now let's
that's-
go ahead and submit the form again. Submitted and user
And-
registered successfully.
Awesome.
Congrats.
Ugh.
And like I said, if you do want to do an additional testing, you can check this, you can look inside the database to see if that user's there. You can also attempt by using Postman to log in as that user. What we will do is on Tuesday, we will start with the second process of logging in that user. So now that we've created the user record, we can now log in as that user to get the token for them. And then using that token, we'll be able to submit and register their user data into the customer entity. All right. All right, everybody, I will see you all on, today's Thursday, right? Yes, I'll see you all on
Yes,
Monday.
Monday.
There is no actual actual holiday because today is the holiday. So I'll see everybody on Monday. Last thing, just a quick reminder again, I don't know if you guys saw it, but there's the book thing that Arnell mentioned.